In a quaint coastal town where the waves whispered secrets to the shore and the salty breeze danced through the air, life moved at a gentle pace. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the cobblestone streets, where children's laughter mingled with the soft clinking of glasses from the nearby cafes. It was a picturesque setting, but for Julian Hart, the town felt like a gilded cage. Julian was a man of means, a wealthy businessman whose empire was built on years of tireless dedication. Yet despite the opulence surrounding him, he found himself trapped within the confines of his sprawling mansion, the walls echoing with loneliness. Having recently been diagnosed with a chronic illness, he was battling not only his physical health, but also the suffocating weight of his past. Memories of a vibrant life faded into the shadows of regret as he withdrew from the world, preferring solitude over the company of friends or family who barely understood his suffering. As he gazed out from his grand balcony, the ocean stretched endlessly before him, a reminder of the adventures he once cherished. The sound of the waves crashing against the rocks brought a semblance of peace, yet it only deepened his sense of isolation. He longed for connection but felt unworthy of it, believing that his illness would only bring pain to those who dared to care for him. The sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, yet Julian felt as though he was watching life unfold from a distance, forever unable to reach out and touch it. Meanwhile, Clara Miller arrived in the town with hopes of starting anew. Having recently moved from a bustling city in search of tranquility, she brought with her a compassionate heart and the determination to heal. As a nurse, her life revolved around caring for others, yet she had her own scars, memories of loss and heartbreak that had driven her to seek solace by the sea. Clara was drawn to the town's charm, its quaint cottages, and the friendly faces that filled the streets. The soothing sound of the waves felt like a balm to her weary soul, promising a fresh start away from the chaos that once consumed her. Clara's days were filled with the scent of fresh coffee and the rustling of autumn leaves. She found joy in her new community, building connections with the locals, yet a part of her remained guarded. The past lingered like a shadow, whispering doubts and fears that she would never be enough for anyone, that love would always elude her grasp. Her first assignment at the local clinic brought her face to face with Julian Hart. Assigned to care for him, she felt a flutter of nerves mixed with the excitement of meeting someone new. As she entered the mansion for the first time, the door creaked open, revealing an interior that spoke of both luxury and a lingering sorrow. The walls were adorned with portraits of a life once lived, memories captured in time. Clara hesitated, her heart racing as she braced herself for the encounter. Julian sat in the dimly lit room, his posture rigid, the tension palpable. When Clara introduced herself, he barely met her gaze. His reluctance was evident, a wall built high to shield him from the world outside. "I don't need help," he muttered, his voice a low growl that echoed the frustration he felt toward his circumstances. "Mr. Hart? I'm here to support you," Clara replied gently, her tone soothing as she stepped closer. "We can work together to find a way forward." But Julian turned his head, staring out the window, watching the waves crash against the rocks as if they held the answers he sought. "I've done just fine on my own," he replied, the hurt and vulnerability lurking beneath the surface. Clara felt a pang of sympathy for him. She could see the hurt in his eyes, the longing for something greater than himself. "Sometimes we all need a little help," she said softly, allowing a hint of warmth to seep into her voice. "It doesn't make you weak. It shows strength to accept support when you need it." Her words hung in the air, and Julian felt something shift within him, a flicker of hope amid the shadows of despair. Yet he quickly extinguished it, retreating further into his defenses. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken thoughts, tension crackling between them as Clara tried to break through. As the days turned into weeks, Clara returned to the mansion regularly, each visit unveiling a new layer of Julian's complex personality. Their exchanges became a dance of vulnerability and resistance, moments of connection emerging like delicate flowers in a barren landscape. Clara learned of Julian's struggles with loneliness, the heavy burden of expectations from his family, and the fear that gnawed at him. Fear of becoming a burden, of being forgotten, of living a life half empty. Julian, in turn, found solace in Clara's presence, her unwavering determination piercing through the fog of his despair. He began to anticipate her visits, the way she moved effortlessly through his home, filling it with warmth and light. Her laughter became a symphony that echoed in his heart, reminding him of the joy he had long thought lost. Yet, as he grew closer to her, so too did his fears expand, threatening to consume the budding connection they shared. Clara found herself drawn to Julian in ways she hadn't expected. His sharp wit and intelligence captivated her, but it was the vulnerability he gradually revealed that struck a chord deep within her. Each shared silence became a bridge, each glance a promise of understanding. She felt a kinship with him, two souls adrift in their own storms, seeking refuge in each other's arms. Yet the spectre of Julian's illness loomed over them, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. Clara struggled with her feelings, torn between her growing affection for him and the fear of what that connection might mean. She questioned her worthiness of love, her heart aching with the weight of uncertainty. Would he ever truly allow her in, or would he push her away to protect her from his impending darkness? As autumn painted the town in shades of gold and crimson, the air grew crisp and the promise of change lingered on the horizon. Julian faced a pivotal moment as his family urged him to pursue aggressive treatments, insisting that he fight for his life. But Julian felt a growing disconnection from their desires, a sense of rebellion against the notion of merely existing. He longed for a life filled with purpose, love, and laughter, not one defined by hospital visits and treatments. Clara watched as Julian wrestled with his inner demons, the conflict within him mirrored in her own uncertainty. She wanted him to fight, to believe in the possibility of a future together, yet she also respected his autonomy. The delicate balance of their relationship began to strain, each moment of silence heavy with unspoken words, each glance laden with emotions they were both afraid to voice. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the town, Clara and Julian sat on the porch of his mansion, the waves crashing in the distance. It was a moment of stillness, yet the air crackled with tension. Clara turned to him, her heart pounding as she gathered the courage to speak. "Julian, I care about you. I want you to fight for your life, for us." Julian's gaze hardened, the pain in his eyes evident. "You don't understand. It's not that simple. I don't want to drag you into this." "But you're not dragging me into anything," she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "I want to be here for you."
"You deserve to live fully, to embrace the moments that matter." "I'm not sure I can," he whispered, the weight of his fears crashing down upon him. "What if I lose you? What if I become a burden?" Clara felt her heart break at his words, the vulnerability in his voice cutting deep. She reached for his hand, squeezing it gently, hoping to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. "You're not a burden, Julian.
You're a beautiful soul who deserves love and joy. Please don't push me away." But before Julian could respond, his phone buzzed, interrupting the fragile moment. He glanced at the screen and felt the walls he had been building come crashing down as he read his family's messages, urging him to reconsider his stance on treatment. Panic surged through him, and in that moment he pulled away from Clara, retreating into the shadows of his mind. "Julian, wait!" Clara called, her voice filled with desperation as she watched him withdraw. The misunderstanding hung heavy in the air, a chasm that seemed insurmountable. Clara felt the sting of rejection, her heart aching as she realized the depth of his fears. She turned away, tears threatening to spill, as she contemplated leaving the town altogether. Yet within her a flicker of hope remained, a belief that love was worth the risk, that healing was a journey they could embark upon together. As Julian faced the barrage of messages from his family, he too felt a moment of clarity wash over him. He had been hiding behind fear and uncertainty, pushing away the very person who had brought light back into his life. Clara had ignited a spark within him, a reason to fight, not just for survival, but for a life filled with love and connection. With the weight of his decision pressing on his heart, Julian realized he had to confront his family, to assert his desire for a life that embraced love rather than mere existence. He had to reach out to Clara, to express his feelings and the importance of her presence in his life. And so, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of the ocean, a new chapter awaited them both, one filled with hope, healing, and the promise of love. The night sky stretched above the coastal town like a blanket of shimmering stars, each one a silent witness to the unfolding emotions within Julian's heart. The salty breeze whispered through the trees, causing the leaves to dance gently, as if urging him to take the first step toward change. He sat alone in his mansion, the walls around him echoing the solitude he had grown accustomed to, yet now felt suffocating. Clara's laughter still lingered in his mind, bright and warm, a stark contrast to the coldness that had settled in his life. Julian's thoughts spiraled back to their last encounter. Clara had looked at him with those deep, expressive eyes that seemed to understand his fears better than he did. In that moment, he had pushed her away, believing that by distancing himself, he was sparing her from the burden of his illness. But now, as he reflected on their brief yet profound connection, he realized that it was precisely her presence that had brought color back to his otherwise grey existence. He could still feel the warmth of her hand on his arm, her touch gentle yet grounding, as if she held the power to tether him to reality. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, a flicker of hope amidst the despair that had become his constant companion. It was time to confront his family and assert his own desires, to reclaim the narrative of his life from the expectations that had been thrust upon him. With a deep breath, Julian rose from his chair, the leather creaking beneath him as he stood. The mansion felt even larger now, almost oppressive in its emptiness. He moved toward the large window that overlooked the sea, the moonlight casting a silvery glow on the waves as they crashed rhythmically against the shore. It was beautiful, but also a reminder of everything he had kept at bay for too long. He picked up his phone, his fingers trembling slightly, as he hovered over Clara's number. The thought of reaching out filled him with both excitement and trepidation. What if she had decided to leave the town for good? What if she didn't want to see him again? The weight of his insecurities pressed down on him, but the memory of her smile spurred him on. He needed her in his life, not just for his sake, but for hers as well. He wanted to show her that love could blossom even in the bleakest of circumstances. Finally, with a resolve he hadn't felt in ages, he pressed the call button and brought the phone to his ear. Each ring felt like an eternity, but when her voice finally broke through the silence, it was like music to his ears. "Hello?" Clara's voice was soft, laced with an undertone of surprise. "Clara, it's Julian," he said, his voice steady despite the nervous flutter in his stomach. I need to talk to you." "Is everything okay?" she asked, concern threading through her tone. "Yes, no, not really. Can we meet?" The words tumbled out in a rush, his heart racing as he awaited her response. "Of course," she replied, a hint of relief evident in her voice. "Where?" "Let's meet at the beach." "The one we talked about, the quiet spot by the rocks?" "I'll be there," she said. And before he could second-guess himself, he hung up, determination coursing through him. As he made his way to the beach, the cool night air enveloped him, refreshing and invigorating. Each step felt purposeful, a step toward reclaiming his life. The sound of the waves grew louder as he approached, a soothing symphony that calmed his racing heart. When he arrived at the beach, Clara was already there, standing at the water's edge, her silhouette illuminated by the moonlight. The sight of her took his breath away, the way the soft glow caught the strands of her hair, framing her face with an ethereal quality. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, her expression shifting from uncertainty to warmth. "Julian," she said softly, a smile blossoming on her lips. "Thank you for coming," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The intensity of the moment overwhelmed him, and he found himself at a loss for words. They stood in silence for a moment, the rhythmic crashing of the waves filling the air around them. Julian felt the weight of everything unspoken hang heavy between them, but the tension began to dissolve as he took a step closer. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he started, his heart pounding in his chest. "About what we shared, and what I did. I pushed you away, and I'm so sorry for that." Clara's gaze softened, and she stepped closer, her eyes searching his for understanding.
"I didn't take it personally, Julian. I know it's hard for you, but it shouldn't have been that way," he continued, the words pouring out of him like a flood. "You've brought something back into my life I thought I'd lost forever. You make me feel alive, Clara. You make me want to fight." Her expression shifted, a mix of surprise and hope flickering across her features. "But fighting means facing the pain, Julian."
"Are you sure you're ready for that?" He hesitated, the truth of her words sinking in. Fighting would mean confronting not just his illness, but all the fears that had kept him isolated for so long. "I'm not sure," he admitted, vulnerability lacing his voice. "But I want to try."
"I want to learn how to live again with you by my side." Clara's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Julian felt a pang of desperation to wipe away her uncertainty. "I know it won't be easy, but I can't imagine facing this without you."
"You've shown me that there's more to life than just surviving." A tear slipped down her cheek, and Julian instinctively reached out to brush it away, his thumb gently caressing her skin. The simple gesture felt monumental, bridging the gap that had formed between them. Their eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passing between them, as if the weight of their shared experiences had forged an invisible bond. "I want to be there for you, Julian, but I also need you to be honest with me." "About everything," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability in her gaze. He nodded, feeling the gravity of her request. "I promise, Clara. I'll be honest. I want to share my fears and hopes with you." They stood there, the cool ocean breeze wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. And for the first time in a long while, Julian felt a flicker of hope. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but as he gazed into Clara's eyes, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. "I want to fight for us," he said, his voice strong. "I want to create a life where we can both be happy, where we can face whatever comes our way together." Clara's smile widened, her eyes sparkling with emotions he had only begun to understand. "Then let's take it one step at a time. We'll figure it out together." As they stood on the edge of the water, Julian took her hand, their fingers intertwining like roots, finding nourishment in the soil. The connection between them felt electric, grounding him in a way he had never known before. Together they faced the ocean, the waves crashing against the shore, a reminder of the turbulence of life, but also of its beauty. In that moment, under the vast expanse of the night sky, Julian felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had found his reason to live, and it was standing right beside him, ready to embark on this journey together. As Julian and Clara stood together hand in hand, the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting a warm glow on the landscape. The rhythmic sound of the waves crashing against the shore created a soothing backdrop, wrapping them in a cocoon of tranquility. It was as if time had paused, allowing them to savor this new chapter in their lives. The air was filled with the scent of salt and the promise of fresh beginnings, an intoxicating mix that filled their lungs with hope. Julian turned to Clara, his expression softened by the gentle light. "You know, I never thought I could feel this way again," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Since my diagnosis, I've been trapped in a world of fear and uncertainty." It was suffocating. His gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the sun kissed the ocean, the line between sea and sky blurring into a dreamlike quality. "But you've changed that. You've brought a light into my darkness." Clara felt her heart swell at his words. She had always believed that healing was not just about medicine, but about connection, about finding the people who could light a spark in the soul. "Julian, you've always had that light within you. Sometimes we just need someone to help us see it," she replied, her voice steady, yet warm with emotion. "I'm here to remind you of the strength you possess. You don't have to face this alone." A silence enveloped them, filled with unspoken understanding. In that moment, Clara's touch felt like a lifeline to Julian, grounding him in reality while freeing him from the chains of his past. He looked deep into her eyes, searching for the truth behind her words. "What if I can't heal? What if I'm just a burden to you?" Clara squeezed his hand, her thumb brushing against his skin in a gentle caress. "Life is unpredictable, Julian. None of us can guarantee what tomorrow holds, but we can choose how we respond to it. I want to be by your side, no matter the outcome." "You deserve to live fully, even if it's just for today." He was taken aback by her conviction, by the way she had so effortlessly turned his doubts into a shared vulnerability. It was a new feeling for him, one he had long forgotten. Trust. In that moment, he realized that Clara wasn't just a nurse, she was becoming an integral part of his life, a melody he never wanted to silence. As they walked along the shoreline, the sand cool beneath their feet, Julian began to share stories from his childhood, tales of adventures spent sailing with his father, of lazy afternoons in the sun, and of laughter echoing through the halls of their family estate. Clara listened, captivated, her heart aching at the joy that once filled his life, and saddened by the shadow that had since taken its place. "Those days feel like a lifetime ago," he said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "But what I wouldn't give to feel that carefree again." Clara nodded, her heart heavy with empathy. "We can find joy again, Julian. It might not look the same, but it's still out there, waiting for us." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences and dreams. Julian spoke of his love for painting, how he used to lose himself in colors and canvases, finding solace in the strokes of his brush. Clara's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Why did you stop?" Julian paused, the weight of the question hanging in the air. "I lost my muse somewhere along the way," he admitted quietly. "But maybe it's time to rediscover it." "Then let's do it together," Clara suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. "We can set up a little studio at your mansion, fill it with paint and brushes, and let the creativity flow. I'd love to see the world through your eyes." He smiled, the thought of reclaiming that part of himself, igniting a flicker of hope within him. "You really think I can?" "Absolutely," she replied, her voice filled with conviction. "All we need is a little courage to start." As they continued their walk, the conversation began to shift, becoming more intimate, more personal. Clara opened up about her own struggles, the reasons that had drawn her to this coastal town. I moved here to escape the chaos of my life, she confessed, her gaze shifting to the ground. After losing my mother, everything felt too heavy. I needed space to breathe, to heal. Julian felt a pang of sorrow at her words, recognizing the depth of her pain. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said softly. It must have been incredibly difficult to navigate that alone. "It was," Clara admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But I've learned that grief doesn't have to be a solitary journey. It's okay to lean on others, to let them in. That's how we heal." The depth of her vulnerability resonated with Julian, and in that moment he felt a profound connection to her, a shared understanding of loss that bridged the gap between their worlds. "Thank you for sharing that with me," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I want to be there for you too, you know? You don't have to carry your burdens alone." Clara looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I'd like that, Julian. I really would." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and indigo, they found themselves standing still, the world around them fading into the background. The enormity of their connection began to settle in, and in that moment they both realized that they had crossed an invisible threshold, one that solidified their bond in a way neither of them had anticipated. But life had its own plans, and the peaceful moment was soon interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching them. Julian turned to see a figure in the distance, his brother, Marcus, striding toward them with an air of urgency. The sight of him sent a jolt of apprehension through Julian's body. "Julian!" Marcus called out, his voice sharp and filled with concern. "We need to talk. It's important." Clara felt a sudden tension in the air, a palpable shift as the warmth of their moment began to dissipate. Julian's expression hardened, and Clara instinctively took a step back, sensing the storm brewing on the horizon. "What is it, Marcus?" Julian asked, his tone guarded. Marcus reached them, his brow furrowed. "I've been speaking with the doctors, and they insist you need to start treatment immediately. They have a new protocol that could potentially help you." "I'm not interested in more treatments," Julian replied, his voice firm. "I've had enough of that." "Julian," Marcus pressed, frustration creeping into his voice. "You can't just give up. This is your life we're talking about. You owe it to yourself to fight." Clara watched the exchange, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The tension between the brothers was palpable, a clash of wills that left her feeling like an outsider in a battle she didn't want to witness. "I owe it to myself to live, Marcus," Julian retorted, his voice rising, "and I can't do that if I'm constantly tethered to a hospital bed. I want to experience life beyond these walls, even if it's just for a short time." "Julian, please," Marcus implored, desperation lacing his words. "I just want what's best for you." Clara stepped forward, her heart racing as she felt compelled to intervene. "Julian, what if you tried it, just to see how it goes?" Julian's gaze shifted to Clara, his expression conflicted. "I don't want to go through that again, Clara. I need to focus on living, not just surviving." "Life doesn't have to be an either-or situation," Clara argued gently. "You can explore your passions and still seek treatment. You don't have to choose one over the other." Silence hung in the air for a moment, each man wrestling with his own convictions. Julian felt torn between his brother's insistence and Clara's encouraging words, his heart aching at the thought of disappointing either of them. "I just want to be free," Julian finally whispered, his voice barely audible. "Then let's find a way to make that happen," Clara replied softly, her eyes searching his. "You don't have to face this alone, remember?" Julian swallowed hard, uncertainty swirling within him, but the warmth of Clara's presence steadied him. He looked back at Marcus, who seemed to be grappling with his own emotions. "Let me think about it," Julian said finally, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on his shoulders. Marcus nodded, albeit reluctantly, and after a moment he glanced at Clara, his expression softening slightly. "Thank you for being here for him." I can see how much you care." As Marcus turned to leave, the tension lingered in the air, and Julian felt the familiar ache of anxiety creeping back in. But Clara remained by his side, her hand slipping back into his, grounding him in the midst of chaos. "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together," she reassured him, her voice a soothing balm against the storm brewing inside him. Julian took a deep breath, her unwavering support igniting a flicker of determination within him. He wasn't ready to surrender to the darkness. He wanted to fight, to live fully, even amidst uncertainty. With Clara at his side, he felt a renewed sense of hope, a flicker of light that he hadn't realized he had been searching for all along. As they resumed their walk along the shore, the evening air filled with the scent of the ocean, Julian glanced over at Clara, her face illuminated by the soft glow of twilight. He knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but with her by his side, he felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Together, they would navigate the waves of life, finding joy in each moment, and perhaps, just perhaps, rediscovering the beauty of living. As Julian and Clara continued their walk along the shore, the sound of the waves lapping gently against the sand created a soothing rhythm, a contrast to the turbulent emotions swirling within them. The world around them was painted in soft hues of orange and lavender, the setting sun casting a warm glow that enveloped them like a comforting blanket. With each step, Julian felt the weight of his burdens begin to lift, if only slightly. Clara walked beside him, her presence a steady anchor amidst the storm of uncertainty that had plagued his mind for so long. "Do you remember the first day we met?" Clara asked, her voice soft yet filled with a playful nostalgia. She glanced at Julian, her eyes sparkling with the remnants of laughter they had shared. He chuckled, the sound a mixture of amusement and disbelief. "I do. You walked into my life like a whirlwind, full of energy and determination. I was so caught off guard by your enthusiasm." Clara smiled, her cheeks flushing slightly at the memory. "And you were so stubborn. I thought I'd never get through to you." Julian shook his head, a fond smile playing on his lips. "You did, though. You made me realize that there's still beauty in life, even when it seems overshadowed by darkness." As they walked, the sand beneath their feet felt cool and comforting, grounding them in the present moment. Julian's heart swelled with a sense of gratitude for Clara and the unexpected bond they had forged. He glanced sideways at her, marveling at how someone so full of light had found her way into his life during such a critical time. "Clara," he began, his tone turning serious, "I need you to know how much you've changed my perspective. I was so focused on the end that I forgot to appreciate the moments in between. You've shown me the beauty of simply being." Clara's expression softened, her heart fluttering at his words. "I didn't do anything extraordinary, Julian. I just tried to be there for you." "But that's the extraordinary part," he replied, his voice low and earnest. "You didn't just care for me physically. You reached into the depths of my soul and reminded me what it means to truly live. It's something I thought I lost forever." They paused for a moment, the horizon stretching before them, vast and inviting. The waves danced in the fading light, and Clara felt a surge of affection for the man standing beside her. She could see the flicker of hope in his eyes, a stark contrast to the shadows of despair that once loomed over him. It was as if, with each passing day, he was slowly reclaiming parts of himself that he thought were lost. "Julian," she said softly, "I want to support you, but I also want you to fight for yourself. You deserve to live, to embrace every moment, even when it's hard." "I know," he replied, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "But it's terrifying. I've been so consumed by fear that I forgot how to hope." Clara reached out, gently squeezing his hand. "Hope is a choice, Julian. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. You've shown me that too. You've faced your challenges with such bravery, and I admire that." He turned to her, his eyes searching hers, seeking the truth in her words. And what about you? What do you hope for? She hesitated, the question hanging in the air like a delicate thread. I hope for connection, she finally confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. After moving here, I was looking for a fresh start, a chance to heal from my own past. I never expected to find someone like you. The sincerity in her voice struck a chord within Julian. He could sense the layers of her own struggles, the battles she fought silently. You're not alone in this, Clara. We can face our pasts together. They continued their stroll, the conversation flowing easily now, like the gentle waves that lapped the shore. Each word exchanged felt like building blocks, fortifying the emotional connection they were creating. Julian felt a newfound courage surging within him as he opened up about the darkness that had overshadowed his life for so long. I've always been driven by ambition, Clara, he confessed, his gaze fixed ahead, as if trying to grasp the future. But in my pursuit of success, I lost sight of what truly mattered.
I buried myself in work, thinking it would fill the void, but it only deepened my loneliness. Clara listened intently, her heart aching for the man who stood beside her. You're not defined by your past mistakes, Julian.
You're more than just a businessman. You're a person who deserves love, happiness, and all the good things life has to offer. His gaze shifted to her, a mixture of surprise and appreciation flickering in his eyes. You make it sound so simple, yet it feels so complex. Clara chuckled lightly. Perhaps it's the complexity that makes it beautiful. We're all a tapestry of experiences, each thread woven together to create something unique. You can choose to rewrite your story, Julian. This is just a chapter. As they walked along the beach, the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow across the water. Julian felt a profound sense of clarity settling within him. Clara's words resonated deeply, echoing in the chambers of his heart. He had spent so long in the shadows, but here, with her light illuminating the path ahead, he began to see the possibility of a life filled with hope. Let's promise each other something, Julian said, his voice steady. Let's promise to fight for ourselves and for each other. No matter what challenges come our way, we'll face them together. Clara's smile brightened, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears of joy.
I promise, Julian. Together. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, the sky transforming into a canvas of twinkling stars. The cool breeze caressed their skin, a gentle reminder of the world around them, alive and breathing. In that moment, Julian realized that he was no longer just a sick millionaire seeking peace. He was a man ready to embrace life, to forge a new path alongside Clara.
As they reached the end of the beach, Julian stopped and turned to face her fully. I want to take the next step, Clara. I want to confront my family and make my own choices about my health. I'm tired of living for everyone else's expectations. Clara's heart swelled with pride. That's a brave decision, Julian. You deserve to live on your terms. He stepped closer, the air between them crackling with unspoken emotions. And more than anything, I want to explore what this connection means. I want to see where this journey takes us. Clara's breath hitched in her throat, the gravity of his words filling her with warmth. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. With no more words needed, Julian leaned in, capturing her lips in a soft, lingering kiss. It was a kiss filled with promises and possibilities, a sweet exchange that spoke of newfound hope and the beauty of vulnerability. Clara melted into him, her heart racing as they shared that intimate moment, the world around them fading away. As they pulled apart, their foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling in the cool evening air. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Julian whispered, his eyes searching hers for confirmation. Yes, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with conviction. It is the beginning of a beautiful journey. They stood there, embraced by the night, united in their resolve to face whatever lay ahead, together. The waves continued their gentle lullaby, a soothing reminder of the love that blossomed that evening as they took their first steps into a future filled with hope, healing, and the promise of new beginnings.